Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. With Season 5 Reloaded, we saw one of our final weapon tuning updates for Warzone, potentially ever. I don't anticipate the meta changing much after this last update, maybe a few tweaks here and there. So for potentially the final time, today we are breaking down the top 10 best loadouts. I got all my stuff set up here with the best of the best weapons, primaries, secondaries, perks, and equipment. We're starting here first with my sort of regain loadout. Goodness, this STG is bright, and I don't know why. We'll switch over to the amp for the time being. But yeah, this is like sort of my regain loadout. If I come back from the gulag and I have no weapons, I might grab this to, get restocking, get a decent primary, and set myself up. Or if I ever want to just switch over to restock as a perk, because I already have my two primary weapons, then I'll throw over to this. So this isn't really getting used a ton. I'm never picking this first, but it's there as like sort of that backup loadout. So STG setup here didn't actually get touched at all with the Season 5 Reloaded update. So nothing really changes here. Still running the MX silencer, the 760 barrel, the 2.5 times optic, especially for Vanguard guns now after the nerf to, I think, the 4 to 8 times, then also the 3 to 6 times. These really aren't worth it anymore. Like just the recoil, the slow ADS, you're not gaining the most out of an optic out of those. So to me, 2.5 times is sort of the way to go. The Slate 2.5 times isn't a bad option either. I also got the weighted stock on there for better control, Carver for better control. The Garanko 50 just makes it super easy and like no recoil. Lengthened Pine Tar for better control, Nerves of Steel for better control while injured, and then also fully loaded. That's a key part of this setup so I can maximize that rifle ammo. For my secondary here, I've been using the amp lately. Agency Reinforced Heavy Tiger Team, the 30 round in the Serpent Wrap, just a nice consistent secondary, sort of a pocket SMG, if you will. Granted, if I open a chest after grabbing this loadout and I find a nice Owen gun or a CX9 or a good sub, I might drop this for that, but it's there as like that sort of backup. You could always use a Vanguard pistol too if you want to throw on fully loaded. Just totally comes down to preference. Perks in this case, Serpentine Restock Combat Scout. The only thing that changes with the rest of the loadouts is that I'm using Overkill instead of Restock, but otherwise that's the same on all my loadouts. Serpentine and Combat Scout, still way too cheesy. Weren't nerfed, no reason to not be using them. I got the throwing knives, and I've been using stims lately instead of snaps just because I feel like I can be a bit more smart with some stim plays here and there, but really both of those are going to be the meta tactical right now. But then getting into some of our more standard setups here, 9 that I would grab at any given instance in game when possible. First one here, a combination of the XM4 and the MP40, and of course as we go through all these setups, you can always flip-flop the primaries and the secondaries with any of these. None of them are really that specific, but XM4 now, after the changes to the automaton, the later nerfs to the STG from a while back, it honestly is a top 2 rifle in the game right now. I mean, low recoil, good range, good velocity, good damage. Like it is very well rounded. Unfortunately, you can only have 5 attachments on it, but it works well. And then MP40 got a slight buff with Season 5 Reloaded, feeling phenomenal. Great movement, great damage, great control. Honestly making a case for, again, top 3 subs in the game right now, I would say. For the XM4, no surprise with this setup here, the basic Cold War copy and paste, Agency Task Force Field Agent 45, or you could use 60, totally comes down to your preference there. Then the 3 times optic as well. You can throw on a reticle if you want. Precision is pretty good. The base one is like the T-pose though, so like that is totally preference based. Then for the MP40, because it got buffed, you don't really need to change your setup here. If it got nerfed, you might want to adjust it, but this has been working for the past season plus at this point. Recoil booster, the short barrel, slate reflector, the folding stock. You keep in mind you don't want to be using removed. Folding is the way to go here. We got perfectionist for better control, quick for better movement, taped for better movement, the Garanko 45, which got that velocity buff, subsonic to stay off the map, and skeletal for better movement and a better ADS. And like I mentioned, we have overkill here instead of restock, and this perk and equipment setup is literally the same on all the following classes. Now, next up we have what's probably my favorite setup in the game at the moment, my favorite loadout. It's a combination of the Grau, the GOAT, and also the PPSH. Yes, this got nerfed, but it's still a very competitive sub. It's just not as dominant as it was before. Still going to be a top 2, top 3 SMG in the game, in my opinion. Very, very reliable, just not as broken as it once was. Also, by the way, as we're going through everything today, if you guys are new to the channel, every day I got you covered with all things going on in COD, and around 53% of viewers watching are not subscribed. So if that's you, or if you're new to the channel, feel free to hit that sub button, turn on those post notifications. That way you can always guarantee you are up to date with everything going on in COD. But Grau's setup here, gonna be a pretty basic one for long range. We got the monolithic suppressor, the Archangel barrel, commando foregrip, the 60 round mag, and then for long range, we're gonna go for the VOK 3 times optic. I'd love to use the iron sights here, but past 40, 50, 60 meters, your visibility starts to go. So the VLK 3x optic is pretty much mandatory there. And of course, on that, we are going to go ahead and use that T-pose reticle as well. So great Grau setup, low recoil, fantastic damage and range. PPSH setup does change a bit here. So this is what I'm running currently, and this is a strafe centered build because frankly, I love the strafe SMG builds. There's so much fun for movement. So I got the recoil booster, the light barrel slate because I'm not too huge on the optics, or the iron sights rather. Remove stock for better movement, fleet and quick for better movement, grooved for the better strafe speed and whatnot. The Nambu 64, these were nerfed from the Nambu 71, subsonic in the compact under barrel for that better strafe speed. But that said, there are still plenty of different setups for the PPSH. Honestly, all the barrels are still very good, but the 230 got nerfed, the rapid got nerfed, so those are not going to be as dominant as they were before. I still think 300 is a really good choice, and frankly, you could use the Granko 71 if you wanted to now too, because the nerfs to the 64 Nambu, it's not clearly the dominant magazine choice now. Both of these are basically right there with one another. Nambu is a little bit more aggressive for my playstyle, I think, but there certainly are some alternative builds here that you could definitely mess around with. Next up, we got another very fun one, the buffed Amax, and also the Armaguerra, which again got a slight nerf, but still super competitive choice, especially again for a strafe build and good mobility. This thing is one of the top choices in the game. I'm glad that the Amax got buffed. It's not going to be crazy broken or like the #1 rifle, but it is certainly better than it was before. Here we are running the monolithic suppressor, the Zodiac barrel, commando foregrip, 45 round mags, which unfortunately is the largest option here, and the VLK 3x optic. Little bit of recoil on this thing still, but nothing that's too unmanageable. And let's be honest, it's an MW gun, so it feels so good to be running yet again. And then for the Armaguerra, honestly, nothing really changed with this setup. I will say you can have alternative setups here though as well. In this case, I'm going for the strafe build once more. So recoil booster, the short barrel for that movement speed and that aim walking movement speed. Slate, we got the skeletal stock for the better strafe. Sleight of hand because none of these other perks are really all that great. Quick, grooved for the strafe again. The 9mm 55 is what I'm still running, but frankly, I don't think the Kurs 64 are all that bad either. They have a little bit more recoil, but they're still going to be super, super competitive. And honestly, you might just want to, like, you know, bite the bullet in this case. If you wanted to use a sniper support gun, you could slow down the Arma a bit, throw on the 64, throw on something like the 550 or the precision barrel, and have more of a sniper support build if you wanted to as well, for what it's worth. But then some sonic and compact on here again for that strafe speed and stay off the map. So pretty basic setup still. It's just, again, it's not going to be as strong as it once was, but still a top tier choice. This next loadout, we got the M4, another MW gun. I love how many viable Modern Warfare weapons there are now. And I got this paired with the Blixen, the damage-based Blixen. So a little bit more control, but it's still going to be a top TTK SMG choice, which is mainly why I still love using this thing. The M4 though, we obviously just talked about this a couple of days back, and then it got buffed with Season 5 Reloaded, so now it's even better. Setup though here, not really changing. We got the monolithic, the Grenadier barrel or the M16 barrel, commando 60 in the VLK 3x optic per usual, no surprises. Then for the Blixen, like I said, this is the damage based setup. So we got the recoil booster, the RMK barrel here is that key factor for that better TTK. Again, like I said, it hurts your control, but that damage output is very, very good. Slate removed, fleet quick per usual, taped as well for that better swap and movement speed. Granko 54 is still the go-to magazine in my opinion. Subsonic, and then I like to go for compact, gives me a little bit better strafe speed. You could also go for, you know, skeletal for that faster ADS if you wanted to. You could use the pistol grip for the better sprint to fire. You certainly got plenty of choices here for the underbarrel. Totally comes down to what you're the most comfortable with. This is what works well for me. Moving on, here we got the STG, then I have the Marco as the secondary here. STG setup is the same that we just featured in the regain class, so no need to go over that again. Same exact attachments as there. The Marco here though actually really hasn't been adjusted too much lately, so it's still going to be one of the better mobility SMGs in the game, and also it has a super competitive TTK. Honestly, the entire SMG category right now is like right there with one another, fighting for the best TTK, right? This build in particular is a little bit based between a hybrid of good speed and good control. So I got the recoil booster. The 342 barrel is that control based one, but with all the other attachments I'm running, I really have good control in general, but they help out more with mobility. So the cons here are not super important. It's just going to make this thing a laser beam, honestly. We got the Slate reflector, the FR stock for the better ADS movement and initial firing control. Gung ho because again, frankly, all the perks suck here, so I can sprint and fire at the same time. If you're transitioning from hip fire into ADS, that's not too bad. We got quick, we got taped, we got some sonic, the 64 round drums, great damage per mag, easy to use. And then skeletal here for that faster ADS. Same deal as over on the Blixen though. If you want to use the pistol grip, compact, steady, totally comes down to your choice there, so you can definitely experiment around. Now here we got the UGM, we got the Owen. This is sort of my experimental loadout for the time being. The UGM was nerfed. It's nowhere near as good as it was before. They actually did a really good job nerfing this in my opinion. It's still very strong, don't get me wrong, but it's not crazy broken. Like, you can absolutely use other ranged weapons now and not have to worry about getting obliterated by the UGM. And the Owen, I mean, it's never been like that #1 SMG in a long time, ever since it was nerfed majorly back in the day, but it still is holding its own just fine through, you know, 15 meters, fantastic TTK, and it's still pretty speedy as well. Now, the UGM here, you gotta adjust things, not necessarily with the setup, but for how you want to use this, because the setup remains largely the same. MX, the 736, 2.5 times now. Keep in mind, you don't want to be running 3 to 6 anymore. Anchor, tight grip, fully loaded, hatched. The 100 round drum, this used to be 125, and the damage per mag on the 125 wasn't great because the fire rate, it's now even worse. And this reload is slow. So you really have to take into account that you're now going to have more recoil, a different optic, and a way worse damage per mag, which does really change up how you might want to be playing the UGM. So just keep that in mind. I also got lengthened and I got strife angled on here as well. So same setup, but it does feel quite different. Then on the Owen gun, this is the same setup from a while back. Recoil booster, no barrel because none of these are really helping out in any crazy way. Slate removed, acrobatic quick, taped for that better movement speed, and swap yet again. I'm still running the Kurz 60 round drums for the best TTK build here. They are a little bit harder to use than, say, the 72 or the Garanko 72, but to me they just feel the best and the most reliable, especially up close. I use lengthened here because the mid-range damage here is just kind of meh, but you might find yourself in a situation where you have this out there, so that's sort of like a fallback, if you will. But as always with any of the SMGs that we've covered here, lengthened, frangible, hollow point, or subsonic are all totally viable ammo upgrades, so you don't always have to use just one of them. Feel free to experiment around per usual. Then I also got the steady grip on here, 2% better control across the board, and better hip fire, which is obviously super useful for those close range fights. Coming up on the last couple, we have another one that I absolutely love right now, the Vargo 52, which I would make a case for being the best rifle in the game right now. Maybe up there with the XM4, like it's that and this, really the #1 and #2 spot, I think. Paired with the newly buffed CX9, one of my all-time favorite subs. It feels way better after this update. It's not as fast or as agile as some of the Vanguard subs, but for a non-Vanguard sub, I think it's clear that it is the #1 SMG that's from Cold War MW. So on the Vargo, typical Cold War copy and paste, right? Grau, Task Force, Spetsnaz 60 in the 3 times. And then on the CX9 here, I go for monolithic, the 5 milliwatt for that better sprint to fire, and because the hip fire in this thing is crazy accurate. The 50 round drums, very rarely do I use a weapon perk on an MW gun, especially because we're so limited now with these 5 attachments, but sleight of hand plus the 50 round drums together, ridiculous reload. It's one of the fastest in the game, so we got to be running that. Then I got the FR stock, better movement speed as well. So this thing is fast, also super easy to use, and that damage now is feeling better than it has in quite some time. Now I do have one sniper setup in here. I'm still personally 3-line gang, but we all know the Garanko is still very good. We also know that the ZRG is solid. The Rytech got buffed. The HDR, AX50, those are both solid. The CAR, the Swiss, like the sniper meta is a little bit more open now, so it really comes down to which sniper you think you're the best with. Always go for that comfortability. If you're really, really good at the Garanko, run that. I personally, from what I've used of it, I'm not really a huge fan. The movement speed, the reload speed, it just feels clunky. I like the 3-line. Like, I'm confident in my ability with this, so this is what I've been running. I paired this with the AS44. Best TTK in the game. For mid-range, it is almost unbeatable. Setup here really hasn't changed in quite some time, though. That being said, MX silencer, the 615 barrel, 2.5 times. I was running even before the 3 to 6 nerf because this is perfect for mid-range. The custom stock for the better control during sustained fire. Disable because this actually gives you that better velocity now. They didn't hide it. I don't know when they changed that, but it used to not say plus bullet velocity, so they ended up updating that. Fully loaded, hatched for better control, Garanko 50, lengthened, and Carver for better control as well. Then on my 3-line setup, there's 2 different setups here, and really the only difference is the barrel. So Mercury 514 here is going to give you a slightly better ADS and be a little bit more aggressive, but 820 is going to be the best like long range barrel and feel the most consistent for that. So both of those barrels work fine, just comes down to what you enjoy using the most. Optic, I like the base sniper scope. If you like something better than that, feel free to choose that. MZ custom stock for the better ADS, silent focus for better stability, on hand for the faster ADS, same deal with fabric, same deal with skeletal. Then I got lengthened and the 20 round mags. You never have to reload, which is nice and convenient, and it's a fast reload when you do get to that, so it just keeps it nice and easy to use, especially for like squad fights when you're constantly shooting back at the enemy. So very, very solid sniper setup. And then lastly, sort of another experimental loadout, I got the Cooper Carbine, I got the UGR. Obviously, these are two close and mid-range guns, so this is the hyper-aggressive loadout. You can certainly use this on Rebirth, and for what it's worth, I'm going to be breaking down another top 10 just for Resurgence for Rebirth and Fortune's Keep in one video later on this weekend, so definitely stay tuned for that. Again, if you're subbed, you'll get the noti when that ends up dropping, but these do work on Caldera just fine. Obviously, the Cooper Carbine is low recoil and super easy to use for mid-range. It is weaker at long range, but totally usable, and the UGR is surprisingly good up close. This thing is very, very fun to use. So on the Cooper, I'm running the MX, the Cooper custom barrel for the best control, velocity, and whatnot. 2.5, the skeletal stock to give it some movement mechanics, however, and just like better mobility in general. If you want good control though, 45 RS is good, 45W is good as well. So if you're really looking for better recoil, feel free to go for either of those. I got tight grip on here on hand, taped for the better movement because the recoil is so easy. Same deal as why I have skeletal on there. 9mm 60 and then lengthened on here as well. And then for the UGR, this one is so unique. So I got the Grau suppressor. You could go for sound suppressor too because this is an SMG and it's from Cold War. So I mean, you're not getting a ton out of Grau, but I'm mainly using it for the better control in this case. Sound suppressor obviously doesn't really offer that. I got Task Force barrel for the better strafe, better range as well, trying to get any potential extra range I can. I got the Bruiser grip for better movement. Same deal with Tiger Team, just to try and match it to some of those Vanguard movement speeds. And then I got the explosive rounds, which is a 50 round magazine, and it is obnoxious, but man, does it work. Like, it's not the strongest thing in the world, but it is very, very fun to use and honestly competitive to say the least. So very, very fun setup there. That being said though, those are the top 10 best loadouts in Warzone after the Reloaded update here for Season 5, and that's going to wrap things up. If you guys enjoyed the video or found it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.